Syrian Arab army seizes an Israeli military vehicle, an armored jeep containing listening and confusion devices in al-Qseir. Lavrov, no time limits should be imposed on the international conference on Syria. Scores of Iraqi victims are killed and wounded in a series of terrorist explosions in several areas. Continues in al-Qseir town in the Homs countryside after defeating the terrorist gangs in several areas. The Syrian Arab army units continued to chase these gangs, killing and wounding many of them, including the terrorist Abu Walid and 2 of his assistants. The armed forces restored security and stability in several areas where life is returning to normal. Syrian Arab army units chased today the terrorists north and west of Barza neighborhood and the surrounding farms in Damascus, killing many of them and injuring others, including snipers and terrorists from al-Nusra. A military source affirmed that units of the Syrian Arab army have tightly cordoned off the terrorist groups in Barza neighborhood, inflicting heavy casualties among them. Units of the Syrian army continued their confrontation of armed terrorist groups in several areas in the countryside of Idlib, killing and wounding large numbers of them and destroying their equipment. The engineering units defused 7 explosive devices in the area of Sheikh Abdullah, weighing between 40 and 50 kilograms, planted by terrorists who targeted innocent people passing by. The Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov asserted that there should be no time limits for the international conference on Syria. He added that Washington expressed its intention to hold a large-scale conference about Syria before the summit of the Group of 8, scheduled to be held in the second half of next June. He said the conference could not succeed without Iran's participation. He pointed out that he discussed with his American counterpart John Kerry early this month the possibility of Iran's participation. At the same time, he asserted that Moscow expected the invitation of all the countries that took part in the Geneva meeting last summer. He stressed the necessity of the participation of the Syrian opposition groups, including those active outside Syria. In Tehran, the Secretary of the Higher Council of the Iranian National Security, Mr. Saeed Jalili, asserted that the Syrian people would not bear the cost of the war on Syria alone. The Europeans would also pay the price. He added that the wrong treatment of the terrorists have caused them to spread thousands of kilometers away from Afghanistan to reach Europe. This should arouse the fears and concern in Europe. Welcome back. In Iraq, dozens of victims were killed and wounded as a result of the mobile terrorist explosions in Iraqi cities. The most violent explosion took place in Baghdad, where 25 people were killed and more than 100 were wounded, and in the explosions of 8 booby-trapped cars in Dalla, al-Kamaliya and al-Zafaraniya to the south of Baghdad. On the other hand, the Iraqi forces continue to dry up the springs of terrorism in Al-Anbar, crushing terrorist gangs of al-Qaeda, the Victory Front, and the so-called the Iraqi Islamic State. The Iraqi forces killed dozens of terrorists and captured 52 others. Iran launched the line of intensive production of the most modern mobile system of air defense named Hers-9 through the efforts of specialized Iranian experts. The Iranian Defense Minister Brigadier Ahmed Wahidi said that the system would be capable of finding and hitting targets at low altitude night and day. The activation of the system would last only a few minutes. It can also be linked to the network of air defenses. Back to our local news, the Minister of Social Affairs, Dr. Kinda Shammat, met with local and international organizations working in the field of salvation. The chairman of the International Committee of the Red Cross discussed the main points concerning the assistance given to Syria in this field. These include more than 30,000 baskets of food for the people living in places of refuge. The political committee of the Meeting of National Dialogue held a meeting in Damascus to discuss the importance of national political and social responsibility and to work on the formulation of a national Syrian convention. The participants asserted that this convention should be the basis of defending political, social and party activities against any deviation away from the aims and targets of these activities. Finally, a new Syrian TV channel was opened today under the name of Talaqi. The new TV channel will introduce a number of diverse programs, including shows specialized in literature and art, to reflect the Syrian citizens' pride in belonging to his country and Arab nation. The channel will also address the citizens' social problems by presenting reports done by field reporters. So the cameras of Talaqi will present sound bites and images digging deep into the roots of the problems with the aim of finding solutions. With this, we end our news for today. Thank you for watching. For more details about Syria and the region and to view this bulletin again, you can always visit our website in English, syriaonline.sy. Now to latest business and market news with Vani Gunjian after a short break.
Good afternoon. The Minister of Economy and Foreign Trade, Dr. Mohammed Zafar Mhabbak, asserted that prices in Syria are cheaper than the neighboring countries despite the current crisis. Moreover, Mhabbak pointed out that the ministry will be working on transferring the dollar to the consumer, not to the importer, especially after the repricing of the black market. The Central Bank of Syria informed the banks and the licensed currency exchange companies its intention to sell a sum of foreign currency estimated at 100 million euros as of next Wednesday. Governor of the CBS, Dr. Adib Mayale, said that this step is a part of the positive intervention carried out by the bank to restore exchange rates to reasonable levels, asserting that the bank has sufficient reserves to continue supporting the exchange rates and providing the country's needs of foreign currency. Futures of the Brent stabilized over $104 per barrel, supported by positive economic data and the good performance of the share markets, while some expectations helped in restricting the prices as investors await the results of the U.S. Central Bank's meeting on Wednesday in order to evaluate oil markets. Most European shares climbed following 4 consecutive weeks of gains for the benchmark stocks Europe index. The US index futures were little changed, while Asian shares rallied, as Asia's benchmark stock index is poised for a second weekly advance. On the other hand, the Nikkei index rose to a new high level in 5 years and 6 months, as the Japanese government raised its evaluation for the economy in May, the first time in 2 months. Gold declined for the 8th session, registering its lowest level in more than a month, whereas investors are selling gold, which dropped 20% since the beginning of this year, as the US dollar and shares keep advancing. The yen rose the most in 3 weeks against the dollar, as it strengthened against all except one of its 16 major counterparts, after the Japanese trade minister said that further losses in the currency would negatively affect people, and the government will work to minimize that. With this, we conclude our news. Thank you for watching and goodbye.